One day to stop that.
I have to do something about it. Moishe is still away, isn't he? Tell him that the link that they should tell people which meeting away. I told you you did a few trips, not even.
Stressful at all.
You know, we did the topic, but it's the mitzvah, bottom of that mitzvah. Somebody told me a few days, called me, he said he's got a guest coming to him at 6 o'clock, a genuine guest, a bacher, who was going to go home for the holidays, but couldn't get home because of COVID. Popped in at 6 o'clock, and he was planning to go to Mincha at 7 o'clock. So he'd already put out the food, he was sitting talking to his guests. It's like a mitzvah. One of them, should he leave to go and have a Mincha, or should he just skip Mincha?
Skip Mincha totally?
Yeah, because I don't know why the person was going to stay. I don't know.
No, will he get it later or not?
No minion where he was minion. I said to him, I don't know, but do me a favor. After you've asked him, I'll get back to him. And he eventually got somebody through. It's called you won't know him. It's called Wine, but doesn't even live in there. He lives in the Mitzvah.
Was Bacher doing all? He was asking all these questions.
No, the host was doing it. The host. I don't know. Said to him, don't go to Mincha. And he said he knows, don't go to Mincha. He knows that people nowadays are not used to these kinds of sack. That's because we're not appreciating enough the mitzvah and the constant mitzvah. How can you go to Mincha? You've got a guest in your house. You go off to Mincha. I find it very interesting, and I'm not saying to you, you should take it on as a sack reason. Is his property the mitzvah? Is he doing the mitzvah? That's how I was trying to work out. He had already put out the stop loss.
It's a few hours he's doing it himself.
Yeah.
The rest of the day, it's his property.
No. Somebody came.
When you serve it, so you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, but he wasn't finished serving. He had finished serving. That's what I found interesting. Oh, that's what I thought. The argument to be there, right? So that's a very good question. What do you gain by being there? Avram Avinu was there. He stood over them under the tree. That means where it was. Yeah, that was to serve. But he's finished serving. Now,
That's what you got wine for, right?
He wanted to serve himself.
Right. No, but after he's
on hold.
So I'm asking you, if you were a guest, let's say your son and daughter come for you've got a married son, haven't you? Daughter. Come to you for 5 tonight for supper. They come to you for supper tonight? So did you go off to the shir after they came to your house?
If they had come tonight, I still would have come to the shir.
Why? What about Isa Mitzvah, Potter Mitzvah?
My wife's looking after them.
It's very different.
It's very difficult. I know. That's the question. But the question, did the Bracha look after?
Not could be done by my wife, but no one can have mincha on my behalf.
Oh, that's part of the question. But the answer is it was a Bracha. And the Bracha would feel more comfortable if he would be there. But I'm not sure. Is it true the Bracha would be more comfortable if he's there?
Yeah.
Do you need to ask? You know, the Chavetz Chaim writes that Friday night, if you've got Bracha, he writes this, you shouldn't sing Shalom Aleichem Neshis Chaim, because you're about to the mitzvah, you're going to keep the mitzvah waiting while you sing Neshis Chaim, you shouldn't skip it. If you've got Bracha. What?
Why is that not possible?
Why singing Neshis Chaim? Because maybe they're hungry and they're... Okay. These are Bracha are usually hungry. What? No. Okay, let's get into it. We're up to Choftesa Medalef Ha'ilais. From the top, we're going to a little bit of a quite a bit for that. Yodug Shom Tano. Tisach Amikpo Shogrisin. If it rains enough that a porridge made out of split beans would go bad, that is enough that the rain should. It is on YouTube. Yeah, it's even TikTok. You can't get on. I know. I don't know what to do. No, but it's my channel, no. But it's
still on your channel.
I think so. Yes. I'm sorry. The YouTube is big, but that one day I couldn't give a share.
It's not that
Have you ever tuned in?
It's the one which is live now. It's the same one as yesterday.
Yeah, I'll send the link to you.
The Rashi says in nice words, interesting words of Rashi. The Rashi says that this particular porridge, "Memaheres diskalkel b'kshomim moatim." Words of Rashi is "Memaheres diskalkel b'kshomim moatim." A little bit of rain ruins it. A little bit of rain ruins it. So I don't know which porridge it is. I haven't ever eaten a porridge made out of split beans. But whatever that porridge is, it's one which is a delicate food. So, for example, it's not like cholent, where a bit of rain into cholent won't ruin it. It's a bit more like chicken soup maybe, or something like that. Where a bit of rain would ruin it. Okay. Rabbi Yosef came to Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi said to Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi was a town of Yosef. Talat and the Sukkah. Nosham Zikka. The wind blew. The Kamaisid Sipusa. So some splinters fell in. Let's take everything out of here. Let's wait for the porridge to go bad. Nothing's going bad yet. For me, since I'm a fussy person, this is as if the porridge has gone bad. So we pass like this. That each person, if it's genuinely an istiness, if it's genuinely fussy, so therefore by that kind of person, even if it's not ruining the porridge, but for that person it's uncomfortable, is allowed to leave. We also learn it doesn't need to be rain. Splinters falling in is the same halacha. So the Sukkah, when the rain came down, the Yorad, so he went out to the Sukkah. You can finish the meal. You do not need to go back into the Sukkah. That means if you've gone out to the Sukkah, the same halacha applies, by the way, if you close the roof. You do not need to open up the roof just because it stopped raining. We'll come to it in a minute. Until it gets light, or to wakes up, we'll discuss that in a minute. This brings up, I have to admit, I suffered from it as a bacher, and my children are going in my ways. I don't know if it's good or bad. I used to sleep in the sukkah with my father for years. My brothers, for the variety of reasons, I didn't accept the difference. Because they came out for years, I slept in the same sukkah as my father. My father's a very light sleeper. So what would happen is, remember this, the years of childhood. What happened was, it would rain, my father would close the sukkah. And then it would stop raining. And I'd lie there for hours awake, deliberating, should I open the roof or not? And it's not a simple question. It's not a simple question, because our halacha is, what does it say over here? You don't need to, because this is now. Shem Zalman's got a few tshuvas about it. One, he writes that perhaps opening the roof is not the same effort as bringing in your duvet and pillows. Another problem is, let's just do a tiny bit more gemara. The one says actually ye'oi. The word ye'oi can mean two meanings, either light or waking up. So boilahu, actually ye'oi until you wake up, actually ye'oi until it gets light. That means till the next time you wake up, then you need to go back in the sukkah until it gets light. Toshma actually ye'oi bi'alad avodah shach. Till it gets light and the dawn comes, which is a double expression because light is Avodah Shach. Why do you have to have two expressions? Tarti, you have two expressions. You need two. It needs to be Avodah Shach and that you should wake up. Now, Avodah Shach is approximately 6, 7 o'clock. And by the time it gets to Sukkot, it's much later. Once you've woken up, then, and it's Avodah Shach, then you have to go back into the Sukkah. So let's say, for example, most people don't get up these days till about 8 o'clock, 7:30. Depends where you are, depends if it's Chol HaMoed, etc. Yom Tov Shachris, many people down in Shachris at 8:30, let's say. So now what would happen is wake up at 7 o'clock, and you've moved into the house with all your pillows or blankets. You wake up, you see it's light outside. Then you're mechuyev to go back into the sukkah. The problem is, if you're aware that waking up requires you to go back to the sukkah, you can start waking up every half an hour, nervous about it. Another question is closing the roof. As much effort as taking the stuff back in. This you should just know that if you look into it more and more, there's no clear-cut halacha about it. Why do I sleep in the sukkah with my sons? And what happens is, I say to them every night, if you want to open the sukkah roof, close the sukkah roof, do as you wish. Ignore me, pretend I'm not there. But you should just know that there's a very good chance that if the sukkah roof gets opened and closed a number of times, I'm moving out of here, I'm going back into my own bed. I'm just telling you that's what's going to happen. But you can do what you like. And taka sometimes will be a night when the sukkah roof goes up and down. Each person, according to how he wakes up and decides whether it is. No, each one has his own opinion. It's considered because it has to be a bit of rain. Another thing the Shabbat writes that even though the Gemara over here tells us that for rain it has to ruin the porridge, that's for eating. For sleeping, people are more sensitive. And even the smallest drop of rain stops people from sleeping. So even if it's a pitter-patter, you can, what? It's very cold. So the Mishnah says regarding very cold, that if you made your sukkah as best as possible and it's still too cold, then you're part of sleeping in the sukkah. But he says that as long as you made the effort to make it a thing, you can't make a sukkah cold and then say it was too cold. That's not coldness. It is a problem. This is not a clear-cut gather. What happens? Times you have it when it comes to eating as well. Should you open it? Should you close it? Right? It's not. But what happened in old days? Never had roofs. Since they never had roofs, so what happened? Never had a roof on the sukkah. So you go to the sukkah. You're stepping out of the house. Once you went into the house, you switched off. But nowadays with the roof, it gets more difficult. It's very ancient. It's the ancient Matter Fan. Matter Fan was written 150 years ago. It was written by the family of Buddhist. A lot of his Torah was brought down in Mishnah. And he writes, he says that you should work to make sure that you have a good roof. Because he says many times he's been to people's sukkahs that don't have a good roof. It starts raining, so they can't close the roof properly. And then the rain stops, but they still can't be in the sukkah. Why can't they be in the sukkah? Because now it is wet, because when it was raining, they couldn't close it properly. If you've got a good roof, so then you can afterwards sleep in the sukkah better. You can now use the sukkah better because it's closed. You should know something. It's not something which is clear cut. What? Because Matter family, yes, Matter family is very machmir.
The case of when you were younger.
Yes. No, my problem is waking my father up. That was always my stress.
If I opened something,
You'd wake up your father. That's the problem is, but you need this mitzvah of sleeping in the sukkah.
you can't do that at your father's expense.
So the question I asked you, if you open your sukkah and your neighbor gets disturbed, are you going to not open your sukkah roof?
You've got a device on your father.
It's not so straightforward. Let's say, for example, I want to do Negelwasser. Get up in the morning, want to do Negelwasser, wake him up. I shouldn't do Negelwasser either. Or, for example, I want to get up for Shachris, he's still sleeping, and I want to get up to learn. I can't get up to learn because it might wake him up. I'm aware there's a question. There's a very, very interesting Orach HaShulchan that says that if you see your father sleeping and you know that he's going to miss, not that my father ever did any of this, but if you see your father sleeping, he's going to miss mincha this afternoon. You shouldn't wake up your father. You should get somebody else to wake up your father. This is a very interesting thing. Because the first second that you get woken up, even if later you're happy, that first second is very painful. And you're causing pain to your parents, even though the halacha is that obviously every bit is small. Anyway, it's not so straightforward what you're going to do. I always say, let's say not my father, my son. I want to get up to do negavas. I'm not allowed to in order because my wake up my son is also a mitzvah not waking up your child. This is a very big problem. We all sleep in the sukkah, it's all squashed in, and you're going to wake each other up, whatever you're going to do. So what are you going to do?
Would it be better if people were
not sleeping in the sukkah? Well,
no, just say that I'm vocal by
my father was, because that's what I do every year, because I've got children who, maybe my father didn't have that struggle with his young. Since I had that struggle myself, so therefore whenever my children sleep in the sukkah with me, before I go to bed, I say to do what you like. Said I'm not here, climb over me, because we can't all get in this. So, climb over, just get in that. We should just know that there's a good chance that if you don't find me in the sukkah, you'll know why. The Mishnah says that if a person sleeps in the sukkah, what happens is, if a person's eating the sukkah and it starts raining, it's a bad sin. We've actually explained a different malach. Is it pshat that you came to the master to pour him a cup, and instead of pouring a cup, you by mistake poured it over the master? That's what you did wrong. Or if pshat is you poured him a good drink, but the master got so annoyed he chucked it back in your face. What says Toshima the Tanya Shofach Rabbi Kitin Apana Vamar Yevshi B'Shemushcha? I don't want your service. When it rains on Sukkot, it's a raya that Hashem is saying, I don't want your mitzvah. Says the Torah. What's the Torah say? That only in a country where it hasn't rained before Sukkot, and the first time it rains is on Sukkot. But nowadays, but in England, the marshal, where it rains before Sukkot, it rained already today. So therefore, that's not counted. But let's say that somebody didn't rain until Sukkot, and then it started raining on Sukkot, that's a bad sign. But in this country, you should not take it as a bad sign. where it didn't rain before Sukkot. That's the winter season. That means in that winter season, usually Sukkot has been in the winter season.
So from where?
From the last year winter. That means it's the winter season.
For a year.
No, for 6 months. Since it hasn't. That means it hasn't rained past month. Let's say it hasn't started. The rainy season hasn't started. If the rainy season's already started, so therefore it started. Now the Gemara describes different things that different simon. When the sun gets hit, there are two explanations. Either it means a eclipse, or it means that the sunlight gets weaker. It seems that it's possible for sunlight to get weaker, like the fire of the sun gets weaker. It's a bad sign for the whole world. The whole world uses the sun, so it's a bad sign. He made a meal for his servants. So he lit a torch. He got angry with them. Take away the torch and put them in darkness. So when the world goes dark, it's a sign that Hashem is displeased with the entire world. When lights get an eclipse, that's referred to the moon and other lights, like the planets. So it's a bad sign for the enemies of Christ, which really means klali. So it's a euphemism. We don't say bad things to Christ. If they're used to getting hit. A child comes to school, the teacher comes to school with a big stick. Who gets scared if a teacher because of a big stick? One who gets hit all the time gets worried. Who gets hit all the time? Klali Sol, says the Marshal, ancient Marshal, the opposite side. So why did Klali Sol get hit all the time? Because the answer is a teacher knows which students there's potential for. A child that has no potential, what's the point of hitting him? He's never going to get into anything. But somebody that has potential is going to hit. Says the Marshal that Klali Sol is a nature. Kachi Sol, yesh biyod ma'ater lilmud b'meno. After more scared because Akshvoch knows that Christ will have the potential to be better, so for them it's more scared. There was an earthquake in the time of the Chaim. The earthquake was in Japan, a famous earthquake, I think it was in 1910. And then many people were killed. There was not any Yidden there, but many Goyim were killed. The Chaim said they're speaking to us in Radin. They said to him, what would you say such a thing? And he said, imagine that the announcement would be made in Yiddish. Who do you think the announcement is for? For those who speak Yiddish, when I have to go to the airport, I always think of that Moshe of Chaim. If you go to the airport, I mean years, but if you go to the airport, what happens is they make announcements in certain languages. Let's say, for example, you're flying to France, they'll say it in English and then in French. Or if you're flying to Eretz Yisrael, it will be in English and then in Nevit. I've had that. Or maybe it was in Ben Gurion, I can't remember. They'll say it in Nevit in English and Nevit and French, whichever language. Why? Because they know that the people destined for that country. The same thing, when something happens in the world, like Shloch is speaking a language, but who is he speaking to? The answer is only for those who understand the language. So obviously speaking to Kaisel, because Kaisel is the one that speak the language. It's bad for the Goyim, because the Goyim count by the sun. The year of the Goyim goes by the sun. If they see so minimum, we count by the moon, Goyim count by the sun. But actually, the Mashor again has got to Navichus, how the moon represents Klali Sol. He says that the moon is sometimes by day and sometimes by night, right? Sometimes you can see the moon by day and sometimes by night. The sun is only by day, meaning that the Goyim, they only succeed when everything's going well for them. It's bright. The second it's night, they can't cope, they don't do anything right. Klali Sol are able, even in times of difficulty, in times of darkness, to find light from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Another thing it says is that the moon gets bigger and smaller, the sun stays the same. Klali Sol, when they do mitzvahs, they grow, they do averos, they suffer. He also says, the Marshal, that it takes 15 days for the moon to get to its full brightness and 15 days to get to its full smallness. If you count generations from Avram to Shlomo Melech, it's 15 generations. From Shlomo's son, Rechavam, to the Chum Beis Hamikdash is also 15 generations. It's like the corresponding to the moon. Okay. Right. If the sun is as eclipse in the east, it's bad for those sitting in the east. But Marov, if it's in the west, if the eclipse is middle of the sky, it's bad for the whole world. If the sun looks red like blood, it means that sword will come to the world. The sack, if the sun gets discolored and looks brownish like sackcloth, it's like hunger. When people get very hungry, the face turns dull. If the sun starts looking red and brown, it's sword and hunger. If the sun eclipse happens at the beginning of the day, It means that, sorry, because the sasa means when the sun sets. It means that the punishment will take a long time, just like sunset is a long time in the day, the punishment will take a long time. But if it's sunrise, the punishment will come quickly. Said the other way around. Because if the eclipse happens, the first explanation is that if the eclipse happens at sunset, it's a sign that the punishment is going to be a very long time to come. The others say no. If the eclipse happens by sunset, it's a proof that the punishment is happening quickly. Because there's an eclipse and then the sun straight away sets. Is a proof that the punishment is happening quickly. Ashenkin, if the eclipse is in the beginning of the day, so you've got the eclipse and then a long day. So it's a question of what is it a sign of when the eclipse happens at the beginning of the day and the end of the day? Is it a sign that the punishment is coming quickly or slowly? There's no such thing as a nation suffering without its God suffering with it. But Rashi says it's referring to the Malach. Others say it's referring to the Avodah Zarah which they serve. Christ will do mitzvahs. They shouldn't worry about any of these things. Don't learn the ways of the goyim. And from the signs of the heavens, don't be scared. The goyim should be scared. The more explains, if they are goyim should be scared and not Klal. It means that means all these things is only when Christ will do avodah. Christ will do mitzvahs. They can ignore all this. There are 4 reasons why there will be an eclipse. Rashi says he does not know the reason for these 4 specific averos. Mashot tries to explain a little bit, but even he struggles. There are 4 averos that cause their sunset eclipse. If the basin dies and they didn't give him a proper hesper, that causes an eclipse. So again, as I said, Rashi doesn't know why. Mashot says that basin brings a light to the generation. Since he wasn't mourned properly, so Hashem makes an eclipse to remind people when the sun sets, be careful of it. So too now basin dies and is not mourned. No, it means later you could do. Wow, what do you mean? I understand that. No, but yes, but at a later stage you can mourn. And also even on Rosh Chodesh, because a well-known Talmud Chacham would do mourn. A girl that is raped, nobody helps her. Marshall says that rape is something which everybody is aware about, knows, and it should be stirred upon. So it's like the sun, which is something which is everybody's aware of, and therefore the fact that you don't do something about it. But Mishkam Zocho on homosexuality, and 2 brothers killed at the same time. These are things which are earth-shattering events. It means there are things which are very terrible, and therefore it's so noticeable the sin. It's like the sun is eclipsed. We should there are 4 reasons why other lights get eclipsed, like referring to the planets and the moon. Our cursive plaster for those who write signs of Lashon Hara. Me'idei is Sheker, and those who give false testimony. Those who grow sheep or goats in Eretz Yisrael. Sheep and goats are very hard to control, and they end up grazing on other people's fields. So therefore, because of that, it is important that we should that you shouldn't grow little animals in their song. Those who cut down nice trees. Which will there are 4 reasons why wealthy people lose all the money and taken by taxes. They have a loan, a debt, which has been paid up, but they do not tear it up. They keep it just in case, which is wrong. If you've been paid up a debt, there's a mitzvah to tear up the shtar. Those who lend the top of testing place. They could have protested and did not protest. Rashi explains, wealthy people, when they protest, it makes a bigger impression. So if a wealthy person does not protest when he could, so if Hashem takes away his money, because Hashem gave you the wealth in order that you should have the status to be able to then protest the Avera. And you didn't use the status to protest the Avera, so if you don't deserve the wealth. They promise Succca publicly and they do not give it. There are 4 reasons why Batim lose all the money. They don't pay the wages on time. They don't pay at all. They get other people to carry their burden of the taxes and things like that. On haughtiness. The gas haughtiness is worse than all of them. Novim comes to the humble people. That people who are humble, they are guaranteed constant peace and tremendous success. And God says there's nothing which causes more harm van Hortitz. I was once sitting by Vitam Tochel actually, and a person who had been extremely wealthy, that had lost all his money, came in. And I was doing shimush. And the person came in to ask a separate shayla. Separate shayla, like nothing to do with anything. And while he was there, he said like this. He said that he lost all his money. When he lost all his money, he went to ask the basis soul of the Ger Rebbe. Why is it? It was already some time ago. Why is it that he lost all his money? The Ger Rebbe told him, I have once or twice seen in a sefer something similar to that. That one time he donated an entire enterprise by himself. I'm not saying the entire thing by himself. Because he paid for the entire base of Medrash completely by himself. The Rebbe said that when you do such a thing, the Satan can't cope with it, and he can't cope with it, therefore he says that you have to make that person lose his money. And he said to that for future, a person should be aware that when you do a very, very big thing, you should try and get at least somebody else to share part of it. That's the story. I heard it. Which we say to learn it again and again, and to keep these halachas, these amazing halachas of sitting in the sukkah, which actually can be quite challenging to do all the halachas correctly. I just saw the other day a 2-volume sefer, this like each volume about this thick, on the halachas of how to build the sukkah correctly, according to all the shits and everything else. You think to yourself, the sukkah station how complicated can it be? But it's quite interesting if it's how much halachas now. I'd like to do a little bit at least on the next yeah, if everybody okay with it. Lulav, there's a Gemara Succca there right next to you if you want. Lulav Hagoz, a stolen sukkah. By Yovesh or dried one, possible. It's possible. Shala Sheva, if it's from Avodah Zarah, that's a tree of Avodah Zarah. Shila Nidachas, a city which needs to destroy this week's Parsha, possible. Niktam Moishe, if its head's been chopped off. Nifetzu olav, if the leaves have fallen off or open, possible. This Mishnah, in very, very short words, actually tells us that there are 3 yesodas for all of the Arba Minim. Every one of the Arba Minim to be kosher has to have 3 things. 1, it has to be yours, lochem. Another one is v'lekachtem lochem. We dash v'lekachtem lokach tam. Tam means complete. The Arba Minim have to be complete. And the third thing, it says creates hodo. We dash the shava, all of them, that they have to be beautiful. There are 3 things by the Arba Minim which are ma'akib. Some say the ma'akib all 7 days, some not all 7 days. But the 3 main principles are yours, complete, and beautiful. So the first one is the stolen one. The stolen one is not yours because it's not yours. It's stolen, so it's not lochem. Yovesh is possible. Now here there's a very famous Rashi, which if I was to tell you how much has been written on this few words of Rashi, I wonder if Rashi himself must be Shemaim getting nachas. Look at the words of Rashi. It says Rashi Yovesh, 4 lines. I'm saying this is highly the mitzvah Roshas have been said by this Rashi. Yovesh to be in on mitzvah muderes, the Torah says they kili and veyu, and it's not beautiful if it's dried. Since it's not beautiful, you're not yotza with a dried out lulav. That cannot be true what Rashi is saying. Why? Because the halacha of anveyu is a hidur mitzvah. It's not me'akev. For example, the halacha is you should wear beautiful tzitzis. If you wear non-beautiful tzitzis, so it's mitzvah, of course, yes. The halacha is that you should wear a talis no, sefer Torah no, everything should be beautiful. But everybody knows that Vanveyu is not Ma'akev. How can they say, but Yovish Apostle says, Vashkaz of Zekili Vanveyu? That's not true. Vanveyu is only a Chatchila, not B'di'evet. Let's see the first few lines of Tes at least. Lulav Yovish Apostle, top Tesis. If I ask Bishop Gemara, which is the Iskash Lulav, the Esed, the Chsibe Hodo, because it says Hodo, and Hodo is Ma'akev. But Loik Vishbush at Kuchas, Bishop the Chsiv Zekili Vanveyu. The Ein Vanveyu, Ela Chatchila, V'le Nifsa Bachi. Kedovinu Per Kama. For example, there's a mitzvah to tie up the lulav. Shenema zekeli vandeyu. Lo yogdev, if you didn't tie up the lulav, kosher. So it says that cannot be. How can Rashi say such a thing? And if you know how many people try and answer Rashi, it's a very, very difficult Rashi. Because Tesis Kasha seems almost unsurpassable for what it is, unresolvable. It's a very strong question. Some say Rashi never meant it. Rashi meant to say that that's the idea of Hodo. He didn't mean to say that. By the way, But that is one question. Why is lulav yavish possible? Now, a bigger question, even bigger, what is a dry lulav? So now let's just see a little bit at the words of Tesis. V'hay yavish, I don't know if that same Tesis where I stopped. Doch. It's a long Tesis. I just want to read out the last, let's 4 lines of Tesis. Say Shlema. Yavshus da'achak v'yaveshus ozem b'chur. An ear of an animal which becomes a Baal Mum, you can then shech the b'chur wherever you want. This week's parasha actually as well. How dry does the ear have to be? That if you touch the ear of the animal, it crumbles. Says Tesis Yavish over here means that when you touch the lulav crumbles. Says the Raavad, I don't understand Tesis. The Raavad writes such a thing. I have a lulav, he says, more than a year old, and I touched it, and it did not crumble. So where is this lulav of Tesis that it's so dry? Says the Raavad, dry means that it has gone pale and that it's lost its green color. Now, I've got pictures. Actually, I sort of got a picture book here. I left it here actually for you to see, but you don't need much imagination to see this. If you look over here, so look, there's the Raavad's Yavish. It's lost its green, and there is Tesis' Yavish, where it's actually crumbling. It's only a picture of it crumbling. It's not a major thing, but it's Machlokes who's showing him what exactly is Yavish. What exactly is Yavish? So you've got Machlokes between Tesis. According to Tesis, all I love him from last year, you can use them this year. Because none of you love him to crumble. So there's also other shittas exactly what is Yavish. Right. We'll leave for the time for the Gemara to discuss it. Niktam Moishe. The head got cut off. What's the problem? The head got cut off. Lokachtem. Lokachtam. Oh, very good. There has to be lekicha tam, a complete. It's missing. Now, which part has been cut off? So let's see Rashi. Let's see Tesis, because Rashi doesn't say much. Niktam Moishe, the second Tesis. Says Tesis, mistoma means the middle 2 leaves. What we call nowadays the tiyobas. So you have to look at the top 2 leaves. If those are cut, that is possible. But otherwise, it's not. Kasha, Yatsa Kasha from the Gemara later. But so Tesis changes his mind. I don't want to be the Kasha because it's more later. I don't get too long. Tesis, most of the leaves have been cut off, which, by the way, would mean that all our loving or kosher. I have never seen a lulav. I mean, I don't know, maybe I have. That most of the leaves are cut off the top. That's quite a lot of leaves to be cut off, right? So again, Tesis got a shaila. What does it mean that the head cut off? Either the middle 2 leaves, which that can happen, and you should just know that sometimes what happens is people in their effort to check if it is closed, they can play with it, and sometimes a tiny bit of it comes off, and then it's Niktam Moishe according to one chat Tesis. Because the second malach of Tesis Niktam Moishe is only if it's the majority of the leaves. Oh. Okay, so that's Machlokes Rishonim. There are others that say that Niktam Moishe means that the spine has been cut off. That the spine is much, much lower than the leaves. And according to that, again, it's almost impossible to have a Niktam Moishe. So if somebody says to is by lulav a Niktam Moishe, so you'll say to the Frishita solution. If somebody says the spine, then it's definitely okay. Roivalin, most of the leaves, definitely okay. It's a certain Tesis. It's a habit with the Tesis that Niktam Moishe means only the top 2 leaves. According to that, you do want to make sure your top 2 leaves are okay. But as I said to most Rishonim and even Tesis himself, is chayzer from that idea. Let's just do a little bit more. Nifritzu olav possible. Nifritzu olav means that what? That they are not, the leaves have fallen off. So if you look in Rashi, Rashi says the leaves actually fell off. Means you strip the leaves off the lulav when they fell off, and then you take a bow and you tie them together, and that's the lulav you've got. That, says Rashi, is possible. Right? Can we see the third Tesis very quickly, because it's mamish halacha nemaisa. Nifritzu olav voy v'alin ivy. Again, Tesis says it has to be most of the leaves. However, I've seen it a few times. I used to spend time in the Tzod, have base toivos. You have places where Rabbanim sit, and people come in queues with the lulavim and the suigim, and there's a long queue, it's like a conveyor belt, and you go to Rob and you show it, and there's like 3-4 Rabbanim sit there. So I used to sit there to watch just to see how they passed it in order to get an idea of what they say is kosher, what's possible. And I remember once in Rav, somebody saying to him that he's struggling to tie the lulav. So the Rav pulled the leaf off the lulav and tied up the lulav. And I shook for a second because this is the lulav the person was intending to shake on Sukkot. The answer is, it has to be most of the leaves fall off. If you take 5 leaves off your lulav, you've done nothing wrong. You should know. That's nifadu. Nifadu is the next one. Nifadu is the fall off. Let's see Tesis. Leaves are bevoy valinai. It has to be most of the leaves had intercepted. First, good nifadu the shadow shleif. Ain't no chabon and they are good. Mas b'shutz b'ashtitu shlagam in hasheto. They came off the spine and you tie them up together with a bow and you make it. They say that's how the older day brooms were. You take off loads of leaves on the lulav, tie them up together, and then it would make like a dust, like a sweeper. Tesis, that's not pshat. So Tesis says that therefore Tesis like this. What happens is that you've split all the double lulav, all the double, every lulav leaf is double. Let me just see the picture so that better here. Yeah, look, you see this. Let's get a bigger one. You see how every leaf is 2. So if you separated with the leaves, you actually went and split most of the leaves. This is the picture of shown of Rashi. It's not a major picture. You can see a tiny string. I don't know if you can even see it from there. Okay. Now, I want to just point out that the Buz brings from the tool a third shot in the Futzolov, where what happens is the leaves are hanging on by a thread. You see how the leaves are hanging on by a thread? So again, let's just explain the 3 shittas. Rashi says different to olive means the leaves have fallen off. All the leaves fell off, you tie them up together. Teis is different to olive is you split most of the leaves in half. Mishavur says different to olive means the leaves are dangling off. That's possible. Nifur to olive, if they've just separated kosher. Separated means that what happened was they just opened up, but the Maisa, they are actually all not hanging on by a thread. They're properly there. That is okay because it's just nifradu. It just separated it, right? So all this business about making sure that it's attached close together, it's not like a mission. Mission says nifradu is okay. You should tie it up at the top to make sure that it shouldn't be separated. There's a kind of a lulav which grew in the Ha'abaza Keshevis. The Gemara explained that there were very short leaves, but the main thing is that the bottom of each leaf reached the next leaf. Okay, we'll come to it more. Lulav lulav which is 3 tvachim and it's long enough that you can shake it. That means besides 3 tvachim, you've got where to hold it, kosher. So how long should the lulav be? 4 tvachim. So then also once came to speak, started the way. And what he did was he cut 1 lulav to 4 tvachim of chazanish, and 1 lulav for the shir of Chaim Noah, and also the dasman of obviously he brought it in. It's very interesting to see, very, very nice. But also vividly to demonstrate what's the minimum size lulav of the chazanish, minimum size lulav of Chaim Noah. Okay, we did quite a bit of halachas. It's quite a lot of halachas over here, and it's great. So tomorrow there'll be a shir, and it's going to be straight after. Is that 8 o'clock shachas? So 8:40, 8:45. How long does shachas take here? 40 minutes.
Like 8:40.
Right, 8:40. There'll be a share. We'll be finishing at Lamed Aleph from Mud Aleph, top, the second line from the top. And then on Shabbos there'll be a share. Now, does anybody mind if you make the share at 6 o'clock before Mincha, or is that too difficult to ask? If you can manage. What? Number? Like a number. No, I just because anyway you're going to have. If it's no good, how should we leave it? My wife said to me, if I do it afterwards. I would like to do 6 o'clock before. You don't mind? You don't mind? Who about you?
I'll go with
I'm 6 or 9.
I'll go with whatever.
I would like very much just this week.
Only this week?
No, I tell you what it is. Because let me have l'chaim. That's the perk. Wait a second. Is anybody else going to